Welcome to Silent Crime Case. Today we take you to the tranquil town of Haverhill, Massachusetts, a place where quiet streets and close-knit communities are the norm. But beneath the surface of this peaceful town lay secrets that would soon unravel in the most shocking way. This is the chilling story of a young groom, a 63-year-old Bridezilla, and a marriage that ended in a gruesome death. Lucas Warren was a 21-year-old with a reserved demeanor. Born and raised in the quaint town of Marblehead, Massachusetts, Lucas was known for being the quiet kid with a camera always around his neck. He had just graduated high school in June 2019, unsure of his future, torn between his passion for photography and the weight of his family's expectations. His father, Michael Warren, had always dreamed of a different life for him, a more stable, predictable one. But the secrets Michael kept would soon come to light in the most tragic way. Their home, a modest cottage on the town's outskirts, was barely holding together, much like their lives. Michael was a single father, overwhelmed by debt and joblessness after a harsh economic downturn. The tension in their home was palpable. Michael's desperation was a dark cloud that hung over them. Yet despite the gloom, Lucas was a kind soul, always helping others, even when his own life was in disarray. But then, just a week before his death, Lucas made a decision that shocked everyone. He married Maureen R. Granted was a 63-year-old retired real estate agent. The whispers spread quickly through Marblehead. Maureen was notorious for her extravagant lifestyle and had been married multiple times. The age difference was just one part of the puzzle. What truly baffled everyone was why Lucas, an introverted young man, would marry someone like Maureen. The wedding was a spectacle over the top, held at a luxury resort in Newport, Rhode Island. Expensive decorations, a gourmet menu, and a designer wedding dress for Maureen. But Lucas, he looked lost, almost like a lamb led to slaughter. His nervousness was evident to everyone. Something wasn't right, and the closer you looked, the clearer it became that this wasn't a story of love but something far more sinister. The marriage shocked everyone who knew Lucas. Friends and neighbors speculated endlessly. Had his father, Michael, pressured him into this strange union for financial gain? Or was there something even darker at play? Lucas's days after the wedding were filled with uncertainty and dread. He confided in his father, expressing his fears and discomfort. But Michael, whose eyes were always on the financial prize, urged him to stay in the marriage. Torn between his father's wishes and his own growing sense of unease, Lucas became more withdrawn, isolating himself from friends and the life he once knew. Then came the morning of July 10th, 2019. The sun had barely risen over Newport when Agatha Clark, an 84-year-old neighbor, went for her daily walk. As she passed Maureen's lavish home, she noticed something strange. The front door was slightly ajar, and the curtains were drawn tight. It was unlike Maureen to leave things in disarray. She was a stickler for order. Agatha hesitated. A chill ran down her spine as she approached the door. She called out, "Maureen, Lucas?" But there was no answer, only silence. Pushing the door open, she was hit by a strong, acrid smell. And then she saw him. Lucas Warren, lying motionless on the living room floor. His body slumped against the couch, surrounded by empty pill bottles. A half-empty glass of water sat on the coffee table beside him. Her breath caught in her throat. She knew she had to act quickly, but her body was frozen with fear. Forcing herself to move, she dialed 911, her hands shaking. I found a body," she stammered, giving the address. The operator asked her to check for signs of life, but Agatha could see it was too late. Lucas's face was ghostly pale. The neatly arranged furniture, everything seemed carefully placed, as if to tell a story. But was it the truth? Detective Gray directed Officer Jack Parker, her young and eager partner, to begin photographing the scene while she called in a forensics team. As they worked, she noticed a detail that made her blood run cold. A wedding photo of Lucas and Maureen on the mantel. Lucas's expression was distant, almost haunted, while Maureen's smile was eerily triumphant. What had really happened in this house? The coroner, Dr. Emily Jones arrived shortly after and confirmed what Detective Gray suspected. Lucas had likely died from an overdose. But the amount of drugs was far beyond the typical limit. This wasn't an accident. Someone wanted Lucas dead. But who? And why? As Detective Gray began piecing together the clues, she couldn't help but suspect Maureen. After all, she was the last person to see Lucas alive. But when they arrived to question her, they found her lounging by the pool, just steps away from where Lucas had died, sipping on a mimosa as if nothing had happened. Her calmness was unnerving. When asked about the events leading up to Lucas's death, she claimed she had gone to bed early, leaving Lucas to his computer games. But Detective Gray wasn't buying it. Something about Maureen's story didn't add up. As the interrogation continued, Maureen's answers were too rehearsed, too perfect. She insisted that Lucas had been struggling and that the medications were his way of coping. But Detective Gray noticed small details: a bed that hadn't been slept in, a TV that was off when it should have been on. Maureen was hiding something, but without concrete evidence they couldn't hold her. But Maureen wasn't the only one with secrets. Detective Gray turned her attention to Michael Warren, Lucas's father. A man with a troubled past and a mountain of debt, Michael had always seemed desperate to secure his financial future. Had he pushed Lucas into this marriage for his own gain? Was there something more sinister at play? When they brought Michael in for questioning, he was a mess nervous, jittery, his story full of contradictions. At first he claimed he hadn't seen Lucas in days, but then he admitted he had visited him the night before his death. What was Michael hiding? The more Detective Gray pressed, the more she suspected he knew more than he was letting on. The tension in the room was thick. Detective Gray could feel it, a web of lies slowly unraveling. But just as she thought she was getting closer to the truth, a new twist emerged. An anonymous envelope arrived at the station, containing a USB drive with a series of text messages between Maureen and an unknown contact. The messages were chilling, detailing a plan to divorce Lucas and cut him out of her will, using Michael's illegal activities as leverage. "He's so damn boring," one message read. "I can't stand it anymore." Another text hinted at a more sinister plan. "If Michael thinks he's getting away with this, he's got another thing coming. I'll make sure he and that useless son pay." Detective Gray's heart pounded as she read the messages. Maureen had been plotting all along, but who was her accomplice? And why was Michael so involved? The pieces of the puzzle were starting to fall into place, but the picture they formed was darker than anyone could have imagined. The investigation took a darker turn when the police traced the messages back to a private investigator hired by Maureen. He had been digging up dirt on Michael, feeding Maureen information. But why? What was the end game? As Detective Gray dug deeper, it became clear that Maureen was willing to do anything to rid herself of Lucas and Michael, even murder. But just when it seemed like the case was about to crack wide open, another shock came. After analyzing the text messages and phone records, it became clear that Michael, Lucas's own father, was behind the deadly plot. Driven by desperation and greed, he had been using his son as a pawn in a twisted game of financial gain. But his plan had gone horribly wrong, and now Lucas was dead. The arrest of Michael Warren sent shockwaves through the quiet towns of Newport and Marblehead. Lucas's family was shattered by the revelation that his own father had caused his death. But the story didn't end there. There were still questions, still secrets buried deep within the hearts of those involved. Was it really just about money, or was there something even darker lurking beneath the surface? As Detective Gray watched Michael being led away in handcuffs, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this story, something she hadn't yet uncovered. Stay tuned, Silent Crime Case followers.